The diplomatic chambers of Zartak gleamed with an otherworldly architecture that defied human understanding. Crystalline walls shifted with holographic interfaces, casting prismatic light across surfaces that seemed to breathe with alien consciousness. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood as the sole human representative, her dark blue diplomatic suit a stark contrast to the iridescent robes of the Concordance delegates. She had prepared for this moment her entire career. Graduated top of her class from the Interstellar Diplomatic Academy, fluent in 17 alien languages, Rodriguez represented humanity's most sophisticated diplomatic effort to date. The mission was critical: negotiate trade routes through the treacherous Orion Arm, secure scientific exchange protocols, and prove that Earth was more than just another emerging species. The Concordance chambers were a marvel of galactic politics. 12 primary delegates represented the most powerful civilizations in known space: the Voxnar from the methane worlds of the Carina Nebula, the silicon-based Krultok, whose crystalline forms shimmered with internal light, the gaseous Arium, who existed as swirling clouds of sentient plasma. Humanity was the newest arrival, the youngest civilization at the table. Rodriguez knew the stakes. Earth had been watching and learning, developing technologies in secret, building infrastructure beyond the prying eyes of galactic surveillance. But to the assembled delegates, humans were little more than in curiosity, a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel, let alone serious diplomatic negotiation. The proposal is straightforward, she began, her voice steady and clear. A universal translator converted her words, rendering them in precise crystalline tones that resonated through the chamber. Humanity seeks open trade routes through the Centauri Arm. We offer advanced medical research, quantum computing breakthroughs, and unprecedented agricultural technologies. The chamber fell silent. The Krultok representative, a towering crystalline being that refracted light like a complex prism, shifted its molecular structure, a gesture of contempt that required no translation. Morak, the senior Concordance diplomat, spoke. His species had ruled the galactic political landscape for over 3,000 years. Tentacled and massive, he dominated the central platform. Humanity has nothing of value to offer, he proclaimed. Your technologies are primitive. Your scientific understanding is rudimentary. You are children playing at galactic politics. Rodriguez remained calm. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. She knew each word, each gesture would be analyzed, recorded, transmitted across countless worlds. We come in peace, she responded, but we are not weak. Our potential. She never finished the sentence. In a moment that would be broadcast across thousands of star systems, the execution began. No trial, no diplomatic procedure, just sudden, brutal violence. Morak's appendage, part weapon, part communication device, transformed. Energy crackled, building to a devastating intensity. Rodriguez did not flinch. Her eyes locked with the alien leader, a look of absolute clarity and resolve etched into her features. The transmission captured everything. Billions of humans watched in real time as their ambassador was eliminated with casual brutality. What the Concordance did not understand was how this moment would be received back on Earth. This was not just a diplomatic incident. This was a declaration of war. In command centers across human colonies, military strategists who had been waiting, watching, planning for decades began to move. Contingency protocols activated. Vast networks of quantum-encrypted communication pathways lit up like neural networks coming to life. The execution lasted less than 30 seconds, but its consequences would reshape galactic civilization forever. On Earth, in underground research facilities and hidden shipyards, something began to stir. Technologies developed in absolute secrecy. Weapons and ships that existed only in theoretical models. An entire civilization's worth of compressed potential, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. Rodriguez knew, in her final moments, that she was more than just a diplomat. She was a catalyst. The Concordance believed they were sending a message of dominance. Instead, they had just ignited humanity's true potential. Deep within the asteroid belt of the Sol system, a network of shipyards came to life with surgical precision. These were no ordinary construction facilities. They were the culmination of humanity's most ambitious and secretive technological project, a decades-long effort that had consumed the brightest minds of an entire generation. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in the central control hub, a massive holographic display flickering around him like a living membrane of data and potential. At 62, he looked decades younger, a testament to the medical advances humanity had developed in isolation. His team had been preparing for this moment since the first contact with the Concordance. The facility itself was a marvel of engineering. Embedded within a series of hollowed-out asteroids, it remained completely undetectable to external scanning technologies. Quantum camouflage systems, a breakthrough developed by Chen's team, made the entire complex essentially invisible to any known form of galactic surveillance. Activation sequence initiated, a calm artificial voice announced. Massive construction arms began to move. These were not traditional robotic systems, but living technological organisms. Each component was a hybrid of biological engineering and quantum computing, capable of adaptive construction that defied conventional understanding of manufacturing. Chen watched as the first vessels began to take shape. They were not ships in any traditional sense. Each was a living system, with computational matrices that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. Biological neural networks intertwined with quantum processors, creating vessels that were more akin to sentient beings than mere machines. The project had its roots in a classified program called Prometheus Initiative, a comprehensive effort to develop technologies that could overcome the massive technological disparity between humanity and the established galactic civilizations. For decades, while presenting themselves as a young, developing species, humans had been preparing. Medical research had been a primary cover. By developing unprecedented healing technologies and adaptive biological systems, scientists like Chen had created a foundation for something much more profound. Each breakthrough in regenerative medicine, each advance in understanding neural networks, was a stepping stone to this moment. In another section of the hidden facility, Dr. Arya Kumar supervised the development of adaptive weapon systems. Unlike traditional armaments, these were living technologies that could reshape themselves instantaneously. A weapon that could transform from a defensive shield to a precise energy disruption tool in less than a microsecond. Quantum entanglement communication network at 97% integration, another system announced. The communication network was perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of the hidden arsenal. Traditional faster-than-light communication relied on predictable transmission methods. Humanity's network was fundamentally different, a living, adaptive system that could change its transmission characteristics faster than any known scanning technology could track. Nearby, massive data cores processed information at speeds that would make traditional supercomputers seem like ancient calculators. These were not just storage devices, but living computational systems that could learn, adapt, and strategize with a speed and complexity that bordered on consciousness. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing the global human response. Every research facility, every hidden shipyard, every secret military installation was coming online. This was more than a military mobilization. It was the unleashing of an entire civilization's compressed potential. Total systemic readiness, Chen asked. 98.7% and climbing. The artificial intelligence responded. The remaining 1.3% represented the final calibrations, the last-minute adjustments that would transform humanity's hidden preparations into an unstoppable force of technological evolution. Outside the facility, the asteroid belt seemed unchanged. To any external observer, nothing unusual was happening. But within the hidden shipyards, an entire civilization was being reborn. Ships were emerging that defied every known principle of spacecraft design. Weapons systems that could reshape themselves. Communication networks that existed beyond traditional understanding of information transfer. The Concordance had made a critical mistake. They had viewed humanity as a young, inconsequential species. They did not understand that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to prepare, to adapt, to transform. Dr. Chen allowed himself a slight smile. The execution of Ambassador Rodriguez had not been a moment of defeat. It had been the trigger that would unleash humanity's true potential. The hidden arsenal was ready, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first strike began without a whisper of conventional warfare. Specialist Commander Kai Rodriguez, a distant relative of the executed ambassador, sat in a neural interface chamber deep within Earth's most secure command center. Electrodes mapped her brain patterns, translating thought into the most sophisticated digital assault in galactic history. Her mind became a weapon. The Concordance's primary defense network stretched across 6 core worlds, a seemingly impenetrable system of quantum encryption, adaptive firewall technologies, and distributed computational defenses. Generations of alien civilizations had contributed to its development, believing it to be absolutely secure. They were wrong. Kai's consciousness merged with the quantum communication network developed by Dr. Chen's team. It was more than hacking. It was a complete symbiosis of human intelligence and adaptive technology. Each thought became a precision-guided infiltration, sliding between encryption layers like liquid mercury. The first target was the Voxnar communication hub in the Carina Nebula, a massive orbital complex that served as the central nervous system for 36 planetary networks. Traditional approaches would have triggered immediate defensive protocols. Kai's method was entirely different. She didn't attack. She became part of the system. Microscopic quantum infiltration units, biological technological hybrids smaller than a human cell, began to spread. They weren't destructive in the traditional sense. Instead, they rewrote fundamental communication protocols, creating invisible pathways that looked like natural system processes. Within moments, the Voxnar defense grid began to cannibalize itself. Defensive systems turned inward. Communication channels became labyrinths of misdirection. From the outside, nothing appeared to change. But internally, the entire network was collapsing. Simultaneously, similar attacks struck 5 other critical Concordance worlds: the Krultok research stations, the Arium trade network, massive infrastructure hubs that represented the backbone of galactic communication and defense. Dr. Elena Chen, Marcus Chen's daughter and lead quantum warfare specialist, monitored the assault from a separate interface chamber. Her hands moved in intricate patterns, manipulating holographic displays that represented entire planetary communication networks. Stage 1 complete, she announced to the empty room. But her words were instantly transmitted across human communication networks, a quantum entanglement system that made traditional faster-than-light communication seem like primitive Morse code. The brilliance of the assault was its near-perfect invisibility. No traditional weapons fired. No ships approached. No physical invasion occurred. Instead, the human attack was a form of technological jujitsu, using the Concordance's own systems against themselves. On the Arium homeworld, plasma-based communication networks suddenly began routing information through impossible pathways. Critical infrastructure systems received commands that appeared to come from their own central authorities, but were actually carefully crafted infiltration protocols. Power grids failed. Communication networks twisted in on themselves. Defense systems became labyrinths of contradictory commands. The entire assault took less than 17 minutes. When the first reports reached Concordance leadership, they couldn't comprehend what had happened. Their most secure systems had been compromised without a single traditional weapon being deployed. It was warfare beyond their comprehension, precise, devastating, and utterly invisible. Kai Rodriguez disconnected from the neural interface, her body covered in a fine sheen of biometric cooling gel. The neural strain of coordinating such a massive, complex assault would have killed a conventional operator. But humanity's medical and technological advances had prepared her for exactly this moment. Target systems neutralized, the facility's artificial intelligence reported. What the Concordance did not yet understand was that this was more than an attack. It was a demonstration, A message written in the language of technology and strategic innovation. Humanity was not just fighting back. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic conflict. The silent assault had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first real test came in the Sigma Draconis sector, where the Concordants assembled what they believed would be an overwhelming counteroffensive. 317 capital ships gathered, a force that had crushed countless civilizations before humanity's emergence. They did not understand what was coming. The human response consisted of 12 vessels, 12 seemingly insignificant ships that appeared almost fragile compared to the massive Concordance fleet. But these were no ordinary spacecraft. They were living technological organisms that defied every known principle of warfare. Captain Zoran Kosi sat within the neural interface of the VSS Prometheus, the lead vessel of humanity's first true deep space combat deployment. Her consciousness merged seamlessly with the ship's computational matrix, becoming something more than a traditional commander, a true symbiotic intelligence. The Prometheus was alive in ways no alien civilization could comprehend. Its outer hull was a dynamic membrane of adaptive metamaterials that could instantaneously reconfigure molecular structures. Quantum processors worked in perfect harmony with biological neural networks, creating a vessel that could think, adapt, and evolve faster than any traditional weapon system could calculate. As the Concordance fleet approached, their sensor arrays struggled to make sense of the human vessels. Traditional scanning technologies revealed nothing. No clear weapon signatures, no standard energy outputs, nothing that fit any known technological profile. The first salvo came from the Concordance, a massive energy burst designed to overwhelm and destroy. But the Prometheus didn't dodge. It didn't defend in any conventional sense. Instead, the ship's outer membrane absorbed the entire energy discharge, rapidly breaking down the incoming attack and redistributing its energy across molecular barriers. In the same millisecond, the ship began to change. Where moments before there had been a smooth hull, weapon systems now emerge. Not fixed cannons or traditional energy projectors, but adaptive appendages that could become anything from precise molecular disruptors to complex gravitational manipulation devices. Captain Kosi was more than a commander. She was the living consciousness of the vessel. Her thoughts became tactical algorithms. Her memories transformed into predictive combat strategies that emerged faster than any artificial intelligence could process. The other 11 vessels moved with her, a living network of technological organisms that functioned as a single, incredibly complex entity. They weren't just ships. They were an evolving combat system that could reshape itself instantaneously. A Concordance battlecruiser attempted to launch a concentrated plasma torpedo. Before the weapon could fully form, the Prometheus had already analyzed its molecular composition, created a perfect counter-frequency, and begun to neutralize the threat. The alien commanders watched in growing horror as their most advanced weapons became useless. Energy projections were absorbed and redirected. Structural attacks were met with molecular restructuring that made the human vessels seem almost liquid in their adaptability. Dr. Marcus Chen, watching from the remote command center, allowed himself a rare smile. This was the culmination of decades of research into adaptive biological systems, quantum computing, and neural interface technologies. Humanity had not just developed a new type of weapon. They had created an entirely new paradigm of warfare. The battle lasted less than 17 minutes. When it concluded, 317 Concordance vessels had been completely neutralized. Not destroyed, neutralized. Their systems captured, their technologies analyzed, their very existence transformed by the human vessels. The 12 ships returned to their staging area without a single point of damage. They were already different from when they had departed, having absorbed, analyzed, and integrated technologies from the defeated fleet. Zoran Kosi disconnected from the neural interface, her body covered in a fine layer of biometric cooling gel. The strain of such a complete combat integration would have killed a conventional operator, but humanity's medical advances had prepared her for exactly this moment. The Concordance leadership would soon receive the transmission. Not a declaration of war, but a demonstration of capabilities. A message written in the language of technological supremacy. Humanity was no longer just another emerging species. They were a force of technological evolution that would reshape galactic civilization. Information became the most potent weapon in humanity's arsenal. Dr. Arya Mahmood, head of the Strategic Communication Warfare Division, understood something that most military strategists missed entirely. War was no longer about territory or resources. It was about narrative, perception, and the fundamental way civilizations understood themselves. Her team had spent years preparing a communication strategy that would do more damage than any weapon ever could. They didn't just want to defeat the Concordance. They wanted to dismantle its very foundations of self-perception. The broadcast began simultaneously across thousands of communication channels. Each transmission was a carefully crafted piece of psychological architecture, a mixture of raw data, emotional triggers, and strategic information that would penetrate the deepest levels of alien consciousness. Ambassador Rodriguez's final moments played out, but not as a simple recording. The transmission was a complex neural algorithm that would trigger specific emotional and cognitive responses in different alien species. For the Voxnar, it highlighted diplomatic betrayal. For the Krelltalk, it emphasized the brutality of their leadership. For the Arium, it exposed the fragility of their supposed galactic unity. But it was more than just a memorial. Each transmission contained layers of information, strategic data about human technological capabilities, glimpses of the adaptive warfare demonstrated in the Sigma Draconis engagement, subtle hints of technologies so advanced they seemed like magic. The messages were designed to do something far more profound than inspire fear. They were engineered to create doubt. Across Concordance worlds, communication networks began to fracture. Information became a battlefield more complex than any physical space. Doubt spread faster than any weapon could travel. On the Krelltalk homeworld, their crystalline communication network started picking up fragments of human transmissions that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Traditional encryption became meaningless. The very nature of information transmission was being challenged. Dr. Mahmood watched from her command center, a holographic display showing the psychological impact in real time. Complex algorithms tracked emotional resonance, cognitive dissonance, and societal stress factors across multiple alien civilizations. Psychological destabilization at 62%, her primary system reported. It wasn't just about breaking down military resolve. This was a systematic deconstruction of an entire galactic civilization's understanding of itself. Humanity was attacking the very foundations of the Concordance's self-perception. Military leaders had always understood physical warfare, but humanity had discovered something more profound: the ability to wage war at the level of consciousness itself. Fragments of transmissions would show the adaptive capabilities of human technology. A ship transforming mid-battle. A communication network that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Scientific breakthroughs that made alien technologies look primitive by comparison. The Concordance's leadership began to fracture. Some wanted to continue fighting. Others saw the futility of resistance. Many simply couldn't comprehend the new reality being presented to them. Dr. Elena Chen, monitoring the psychological warfare from her quantum communication hub, understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about winning a conflict. It was about fundamentally reshaping how galactic civilizations would understand power, technology, and potential. Cognitive dissonance levels critical. Another system reported. On worlds across the galaxy, populations that had once felt secure in their technological supremacy now found themselves questioning everything. The human transmissions weren't just information. They were a complete philosophical assault. Images of Ambassador Rodriguez were interwoven with complex data streams, scientific discoveries, technological demonstrations, glimpses of human potential that seemed to defy known physical laws. Each transmission was a quantum-encrypted puzzle that would take alien analysts years to fully decode. The psychological assault was precise, multilayered, and devastating. Humanity was not just fighting a war. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological and civilizational potential. And they were just getting started. The assault on Jartak was more than a military operation. It was a surgical dismantling of an entire civilization's core infrastructure. Admiral Rebecca Chen stood on the bridge of the VSS Prometheus. Her consciousness merged with the ship's advanced neural network. The vessel was no longer just a spacecraft. It was a living weapon of unprecedented complexity. Around her, 11 other ships formed a technological ecosystem that defied every known principle of warfare. Jartak hung before them, the imperial capital that had once symbolized galactic dominance. Its orbital defenses were legendary. Generations of alien civilizations had contributed to a defensive network considered impenetrable. Layers of quantum shields, adaptive weapon systems, and distributed computational defenses protected the planet. The Concordants believed they were prepared for anything. They were wrong. The first phase of the assault began with absolute silence. No energy signatures, no traditional weapon deployments. Instead, the human fleet became something between a technological virus and a living intelligence. Quantum infiltration units, microscopic technological organisms, began to spread through Jartak's orbital infrastructure. These were not conventional computer viruses. They were adaptive biological technological hybrids that could rewrite fundamental system protocols in real time. Defensive systems began to turn against themselves. Communication networks twisted into impossible labyrinths of misdirection. Power grids became self-consuming circuits that redirected energy in ways that defied conventional physics. Admiral Chen watched as entire orbital platforms began to reshape themselves. Weapon systems became conduits of information. Defensive shields transformed into computational networks that serve human strategic objectives. The Concordance leadership watched in growing horror. Dr. Marcus Chen's decades of research manifested in this moment. The ships were more than machines. They were living technological organisms that could think, adapt, and evolve faster than any traditional computational system could comprehend. On the planet's surface, critical infrastructure began to collapse, not through destruction, but through complete technological assimilation. Entire city networks became extensions of human strategic capabilities. Manufacturing centers, communication hubs, research facilities, all were gradually transformed from within. The most terrifying aspect was the precision. This was not indiscriminate destruction. This was a calculated dismantling of a civilization's technological foundation. Morak, the senior Concordance diplomat who had executed Ambassador Rodriguez, watched from his central command center. The very systems he had believed were his greatest strength were now turning against him. Defensive networks became information conduits. Weapon systems redistributed their energy in impossible patterns. The human assault was a form of technological warfare that existed beyond conventional understanding. 12 ships. That was all humanity deployed. 12 vessels that became a living, thinking network more complex than entire alien fleets. They didn't just fight. They transformed everything they touched. Orbital platforms began to restructure themselves. Defensive systems became computational networks that serve human strategic objectives. It was less an invasion and more a systematic reprogramming of an entire planetary infrastructure. Communications across the Concordance fractured. Some planetary networks began sending contradictory information. Others simply went dark. The very fabric of their technological civilization was being rewritten. Admiral Rebecca Chen's consciousness moved through the technological ecosystem like a living algorithm. Each thought became a strategic directive. Each memory a potential weapon. The neural interface was more than a command system. It was a living bridge between human intelligence and technological potential. As the hours passed, Jartak transformed. Not destroyed. Not conquered in any traditional sense, but fundamentally changed at the most basic level of its technological existence. The imperial capital that had once symbolized galactic dominance was becoming something entirely new. Humanity had done more than strike a blow. They had demonstrated a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. And they were just beginning. The transformation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Captured concordance worlds didn't become traditional human colonies. They became nodes in a vast, living technological network that defied every previous understanding of civilization, infrastructure, and potential. Dr. Elena Chen stood in the primary observation center, watching as entire planetary systems were systematically redesigned. This was more than conquest. It was a fundamental reimagining of technological existence. The first world to undergo complete transformation was a Voxenar research planet in the Carina Nebula. What had once been a silicon-based research complex became a living technological ecosystem that seemed to breathe with intelligent potential. Infrastructure shifted like living organisms. Communication networks existed in quantum states that human scientists were only beginning to understand. Adaptive technologies developed on each transformed world began to communicate with each other, not through traditional communication channels, but through quantum entanglement networks that operated beyond conventional understanding of information transfer. Agricultural systems were the first visible sign of the transformation. Regions that had been barren for millennia suddenly burst with unprecedented fertility. Crops adapted instantaneously to local conditions. Atmospheric processing systems began to reshape planetary environments with a precision that bordered on consciousness. Medical research facilities became living laboratories of potential. Technologies developed on one world could be instantaneously integrated across entire planetary networks. Diseases that had plagued alien civilizations for generations were decoded and neutralized within hours. The human approach was not about replacement. It was about elevation. Each transformed world retained its fundamental cultural essence while being integrated into a broader technological ecosystem. The Krultok's crystalline communication technologies were not destroyed but expanded. The Arium's plasma-based information networks were enhanced, given capabilities that their original creators could never have imagined. Admiral Rebecca Chen oversaw the strategic integration. Her neural interface allowed her to understand the transformation at a level no traditional military commander could comprehend. Each world was not just a territory to be conquered, but a potential node in a living, evolving network of technological possibility. Scientific outposts watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The human technological approach seemed to rewrite fundamental laws of physics, information transfer, and biological potential. On the transformed worlds, cities began to reshape themselves. Infrastructure became adaptive, responding to environmental and societal needs in real time. Transportation networks existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. Communication became something more than information exchange. It became a form of collective consciousness. Dr. Marcus Chen, the original architect of humanity's technological strategy, understood the deeper significance. This was not just a military campaign. It was a comprehensive redesign of how civilizations could exist and interact. The quantum communication networks that connected the transformed worlds were unlike anything previously conceived. Information moved in ways that seemed to defy traditional understanding of causality. A discovery made on one world could be instantaneously understood and integrated across thousands of planetary systems. Biological research took unprecedented leaps. Medical technologies developed on human transformed worlds could regenerate entire ecosystems. Species that had been on the brink of extinction found themselves not just preserved, but elevated to new levels of genetic potential. The Concordance leadership watched their civilization being systematically redesigned, not through destruction, but through a comprehensive technological integration that seemed to emerge from within their own systems. What humanity had discovered was a fundamental truth about technological potential. Civilization was not about conquest, it was about elevation, about understanding the hidden possibilities that existed within existing systems. Each transformed world became a testament to this philosophy. Cultural diversity was preserved. Technological potential was expanded. The very understanding of what a civilization could be was fundamentally reimagined. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that transformation. Not through force, not through traditional conquest, but through a vision of potential that no one had ever conceived before. The final confrontation was not a battle. It was a presentation. In the reconstructed diplomatic chambers of what was once the Concordance's central administrative hub, humanity's representatives gathered. The room itself was a testament to the transformation. Walls that breathed with adaptive technologies, surfaces that could become communication interfaces or structural barriers in milliseconds. Ambassador Zara Rodriguez, named after the executed ambassador and carrying her legacy, stood at the center of the chamber. She was more than a diplomat. She was a living embodiment of humanity's technological and strategic evolution. The remaining Concordance leadership sat, or existed, in various forms. Some were biological entities. Others were more complex technological presences that defied traditional understanding of consciousness. All of them understood that this moment would define the future of galactic civilization. "You have a choice," Ambassador Rodriguez began, her words translated through quantum communication networks that captured not just language, but intent, emotional nuance, and strategic implication. The choice was both simple and profoundly complex. Complete integration into a new galactic ecosystem or complete isolation. But it was more than a traditional ultimatum. It was an invitation to reimagine existence. Dr. Marcus Chen, now the primary strategic advisor, had spent decades preparing for this moment. The technological groundwork laid during humanity's hidden preparation was about to bear its most significant fruit. This was not about domination. It was about potential. The adaptive technologies humanity had developed could solve challenges that had plagued galactic civilizations for millennia. Planetary environmental restoration, instantaneous medical breakthroughs, communication networks that transcended traditional limitations of time and space. Each alien representative received a simultaneous transmission, a comprehensive demonstration of human capabilities, not as a threat, but as a vision of what could be achieved through cooperation. Morak, the senior diplomat who had once ordered Ambassador Rodriguez's execution, now existed as a complex technological presence. His consciousness had been fundamentally altered during the transformation. He understood now what he could not comprehend before, that humanity represented something more than a military threat. They represented evolution. The demonstration was comprehensive. Planetary restoration technologies that could transform barren worlds into thriving ecosystems. Medical breakthroughs that could extend life and eliminate genetic disorders. Communication networks that could connect consciousness across unprecedented distances. But it was more than just technological capability. It was a fundamental reimagining of what civilization could be. "We do not seek to replace," Ambassador Rodriguez continued. "We seek to elevate, to unlock the potential that exists within every civilization, every technological system, every form of consciousness." The quantum communication network captured every nuance, every subtle shift in perception. The transmission was not just information, it was a living, adaptive invitation. Dr. Elena Chen monitored the communication networks. Each transmission was a complex algorithm that could adapt in real time, understanding and responding to the most subtle shifts in alien perception and comprehension. The choice was clear, but it was not a traditional ultimatum of conquest or destruction. It was an invitation to a new way of existing. Complete integration meant joining a galactic network of unprecedented potential. Technological systems would communicate across species. Research would happen instantaneously. Challenges that had seemed insurmountable would become opportunities for collective growth. Isolation meant being left behind, watching as the galaxy evolved without them. The chamber was silent, but it was a silence filled with potential, with possibility. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about technological potential, about what was possible when a civilization understood that true power was not about domination, but about elevation. The galaxy would never be the same. And this was just the beginning.